All right, hello and welcome into Sports Talk on a Budget. It is Tuesday, December 19th, year of our Lord 2023. Special show today. I'm going to be traveling for the holidays, so wanted to get this show in. I'm going to do my college football playoff preview. As you can see, I have my special guest here, Mason Schlange, friend for a long time, over almost 20 years now. He's going to break down both the games, and then we'll actually get to the championship game and who we think is going to win the whole thing as well. So without further ado, Mason, go ahead and introduce yourself there.
Yeah, hey, like Cody said, Mason Schlange. I've known Cody for a very long time. Played sports together all through elementary, junior high, into high school, and all that good stuff. And then obviously have stayed in touch. And yeah, just happy to hear to talk some college football.
Great. Yeah, this is, like I said, it's a little early. Got about 2 weeks before the games actually drop, and I think it's on Monday in 2 weeks. But wanted to get this out there. I know with the holidays, people's schedules are kind of crazy, and mine's probably going to be crazy for the next couple of weeks. But let's go ahead and let's look at these games. I know we kind of got maybe not a matchup we thought we were going to get. Alabama kind of snuck in there after they beat Georgia in the SEC championship game. And I mean, people have probably heard every person out there, every angle about how maybe Florida State was screwed and how Bama doesn't deserve to get in. So did you want to kind of touch on that at all? Any kind of opinion that you had about Florida State getting left out, Alabama getting in,
Yeah,
anything like that before we get to the games?
yeah. So it's for sure an interesting topic, right? Because it's the first time an undefeated team hasn't gotten into the playoff. I totally understand the whole quarterback thing, right? Because we saw how the game went in the ACC championship. It was, I don't know if you watched it, but it was pretty rough. The quarterback play
It was a
was
rough
not,
watch.
yeah, it was not good. But you have a third string kid, true freshman, all that good stuff. So like it's kind of to be expected. And it was rainy as well. But
Right,
I
right.
see that side of it. I don't necessarily agree with it though, because we play the game to win, right? The whole point of football is overcoming adversity, pushing forward as a team, and winning. That's what they did. They did what they were supposed to. At the end of the day, they didn't get in, right? And I think we knew, because you and I, we watched the Oregon Washington game, with Oregon losing and then Georgia falling, we knew what was going to happen, right? And especially with how Bama kind of, they kind of imposed their will a little bit. Like
Oh, for
they
sure.
they really got their way with it. So it's one of those things where when it was announced, I wasn't surprised in the least. And even during the reveal and even the ACC championship, I felt that people were already assuming Bama was going to be in it. Like people were convincing themselves Florida State shouldn't be there. I don't know how you felt, but that's kind of like how I saw it.
Oh yeah, you heard the conversations like after Bama beat Georgia. It more became about okay, like who's going to get that fourth spot? Is it going to be Bama? Is it going to be Florida State? And then even Texas was thrown in there. But everybody was like, okay, Texas. If Bama gets in, Texas is in because they beat them. But I
Yeah,
remember you texted me in the morning when they were doing the whole reveal. Once we saw Texas get that third spot, it's like okay, and then it's Bama. You can't
it's
have
Bama.
Texas in there and then not have Florida State. I get obviously backup quarterback Jordan Travis out, so it was going to be tough. And 13-0. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, there's nothing else they could have done. Beat
Yeah, you did
LSU.
it, right? You
Yeah.
did what you're supposed to do.
And I kind of knew like if it was, I think if the argument was like if Texas never beat Bama, say Texas was just 12-1, but they were a conference champion, I think Florida State gets in. But I think it's because you went against Bama, I think as well, is where you really lost it because obviously Bama's been the best team in college football
Yeah,
for a while now, outside of Georgia these last couple of years. So, but I think with the whole committee thing, it's like we know that the Bama Michigan matchup was going to be the better matchup, and it's going to because Michigan most likely would have beat Florida State pretty good without their quarterback. But it's like just come out and be like, hey, you know what? This is for TV. We want to sell tickets. We want to have good ratings. We want to have a good game. Just come out and say it. Don't hide behind the
yeah,
quarterback. It's
exactly.
like just come out and say it. Be upfront about it. And I think that's kind of what bothered me is they were kind of like, oh, well, it was all about the quarterback. It's like, yeah, we get that, but like they still went 13-0. They still were an ACC champion. They still beat an LSU team that Bama beat, but it was a common
Yeah,
opponent there. They beat Florida, who was another SEC team, which is not a great year, but still. So I think it was just, I think they kind of just, once they put out the ranking, they kind of just hid, and that bothered me a little bit, and they kind of didn't step in front of it. But to be honest, I'm excited for both these matchups. I think that I don't know if you could say there's a clear favorite going into the playoff, which is kind of hard to say because I think the last 2 years, like Georgia was the clear favorite going into the playoffs, and it was like, okay, who's going to
especially
beat
last
Georgia?
year.
Yeah, especially last year. Like I thought Michigan may have had a chance, and they couldn't even beat TCU, let alone beat Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So this year, I don't know because it just breaks down. Texas looks good. We thought Washington would lose to Oregon, and they hammered them. So let's go ahead and I want to start off with the Rose Bowl there. So that's the 4 Alabama versus 1 Michigan. So I know you're not a betting guy, but the spread currently is in Michigan's favor. So Michigan is currently the betting favorite to win. They're supposed to win by 1.5 is the spread. So obviously, be 1 or 2 points is what Vegas thinks they'll win by. But just when you saw that matchup and just kind of looking at what you've seen from both these teams going into the season, what's kind of your first thought on the game?
Yeah, so first thought, I think Bama's going to win. The reason being is I think Bama right now is peaking. I think that they're peaking at the right time when they need to. That loss with Texas, not discrediting Texas, they did what they're supposed to do, but first of the season, right? There's a lot of growth that can happen. So I think Bama's peaking at the right time. That said, Michigan's a very good team, but back to Bama, I think they're so well coached, and we've talked about this. Like they don't make mistakes, and you saw that with Georgia. They don't make dumb mistakes in crucial times. They play really sound football. On the flip side with Michigan, they play a style of football to where they're going to have to get ahead of Alabama. The way you have to beat Alabama is you have to get ahead of them and make them play catch up. If you go 1-2 punch with them, you have to make sure that you end up with the last possession and you score. Because if you let Alabama, they're probably going to score because of the way that they're built. You know, if they get ahead of you too, they're going to bleed that clock completely dry, and then you're not even going to have a chance. But Michigan, on the flip side, it's going to be really cool to see because they have a good run game. They have a great offensive line. You know, they have the quarterback. They have the defense. So I think it's a good matchup. You know, I think it's going to be a close game, but I think Alabama with just how they are, and like you saw how Michigan reacted when they were
right, and they were rooting for Florida State for sure.
Yeah, and like you get it right, but that says something, you know. So it's like people know who Alabama is. They're the big brother. They are going to come in and do what Alabama does. They're not going to make mistakes. They're going to run the football, and they're going to try and get ahead of you and then beat you by running the clock completely dry. And that's why as Michigan, come out and get up on them and make sure you control that game and leave it out of Saban's hands. Don't leave it up to him.
I agree. And I just kind of wanted to get a couple of the points that you made there. First one was obviously well-coached Alabama. You give Nick Saban a whole month to prepare for you. It's a tall order to kind of beat Nick Saban and that Alabama team. And, yeah, Alabama is peaking at the right time. Like Jalen Milroe early on in the season, I thought, okay, well, he could be the weak link and keeps Alabama from getting to an SEC championship game, getting to the playoff. But he ends up being their strength. He had a great game against Georgia in the SEC championship game. And the thing with Michigan, and we talked about this when we were watching the Pac-12 championship game, I don't know if I know how good Michigan is because I feel like you look at their schedule and you circle like 2 teams, maybe just Ohio State, because they beat Penn State every year, and you hear Penn State all offseason. Oh, Penn State's going to compete with Ohio State and Michigan, and they never do. And they never do. Happens. So it's like, yeah, how good is Michigan? They played Iowa in the Big Ten championship game, and that was unwatchable as well. And it was just like Iowa's a one-dimensional team. They only can win on defense. So it's like if you score 15, 20 points, you're going to beat Iowa. So that's the thing with Michigan. Like Michigan's not going to be – like Ohio State has good athletes, has a good defense, but they're not Alabama. So Michigan hasn't seen anything. Michigan can run the ball well, but they've never ran on a front like Alabama, with those guys up front. And then I think the big thing for Alabama, I think what they're going to do is they're going to probably just load the box and say, J.J. McCarthy, like you're supposed to be this guy who's going to be potentially a first-round pick in the NFL draft. Like, can you beat us? Because I don't know if he can. Because he had a couple of good throws in the Ohio State game, but it was mostly the run game that won it for them. The Penn State game, he had 7 passing attempts. He was 6 of 7. It's like, so they didn't even need him to win the Penn State game. So they're going to need him against Alabama.
Crazy stat line for a championship game.
Right? It's like, you play Penn State, it's supposed to be a big game, and you throw 7 attempts and you still win by 10-plus points. So I'm with you. I'm leaning Alabama just because, like you said, they're a hot team right now. Nick Saban, you give him a month to prepare. He's really difficult to beat. I mean, he's difficult to beat. You give him a week to prepare, let alone a month. And then I just don't like the matchup with Michigan likes to run the ball. They like to play ahead. they have to get ahead, like you said. If they don't get ahead and they can't run the ball and it's all on J.J. McCarthy, I don't like that matchup. The defensive backs for Alabama are really good too. They have some good corners and good safeties. So, and I don't really know who's the number one receiver for Michigan. You don't see them throw the ball that much. I think, like you said, Michigan, you saw their reaction when they got Alabama in the playoff, and you saw them kind of look bummed. And that kind of, like you said, that kind of gives you an idea of what they're expecting.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost like Michigan's style of play plays really well into Alabama. It's like we're going to run the ball great. We're going to stack the box and stop you type of thing. And that's why I say how do you beat Alabama? You get up on them like teams have in the past, or you possess the ball last and you score on them at the end of the game. Or obviously like a huge turnover like Georgia had a couple years ago in that national championship. And I don't even know if I don't know if you've seen this. Did you see that Nick Saban brought on one of Michigan's defensive coordinators?
Yeah. So it's like, so I mean, you got a guy. I think he got fired earlier this year. He might have been with the whole like sign stealing crap. He might have been like fired because of all that crap. But yeah, I mean, Saban's going to try to get any edge. He's going to any edge.
Which is crazy, because like I like Harbaugh. I think he's awesome. And I think that whole sign stealing thing was kind of a joke, to me at least. It's like they all do it. But then Bama can turn around and do that, and it's like no one cares. Right? Fair play,
right? It's like, okay, one's considered cheating, one's considered fair play. It's like, okay, so I can just hire a coach that I had to have all season. But hey, like if they were playing Texas, were they going to hire a former Texas staffer? It's like, I don't know. So that's I agree with you there. The whole sign stealing thing, I kind of covered that a little bit, but you're right. Like everybody does it, and they just got caught. They might have went a little bit further than everybody else does with the way that they did it, but still, everybody else. And that seemed to be a distraction, but they went 3-0 without Harbaugh, so I don't think that's going to be an issue, and he's obviously going to be coaching this game, so I don't think that'll be a problem. But yeah, I mean, I think Michigan keeps it close for the most part because Alabama's gotten better on offense, but they're still not an offense that's just going to go and blow you out. That's not what they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball with Jalen Milroe. They're not going to, this is not the Alabama offense with Bryce Young and Jamison Williams or even with Tua and Devontae Smith. It's not the same offense.
And Jalen Hurts, it's not the same.
Yeah, it's not the same. So I think it'll be a closer game. I think the total, I know you're not a betting fan, but I'll throw another thing in there. The total, I think, is what they're saying is it could go over, like 45 is what their total is at, whether it goes over or under that. That's probably, I could see it being like in the game in the 20s and teens.
Yeah.
If it is a blowout, I could see Bama blowing out Michigan. I don't see Michigan winning in a blowout. I don't see that because I don't think Bama's defense gives them enough opportunities to get those points. So, but I mean, I could be wrong. Michigan could come out hot, ready to go, but Rose Bowl, classic Big Ten Michigan Rose Bowl, but last time that they're going to play, last time, I guess not a Pac-12 opponent, but last time in this kind of scenario here. But I don't know. I like you said with Alabama, just knowing then they would get in. And the thing that I think what's going to bother me is Bama's got a real chance of winning this whole thing. Yeah. And then it kind of just vindicates everything. Oh, well, they won, so we had to put them in. It's like, well, that was, of course, they're still Alabama. They still have the greatest coach in.
They're always going to have a chance, history. Right? They're always going to have a chance.
Exactly.
Especially being 12-1. It's not like last year's Bama team where it was like a down year, and they still won how many games? Yeah. So like a down year.
Yeah.
And
a down year is
10-2
for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and even this year, like losing to Texas, that was a huge deal, right? It was huge, and it didn't matter at the end of the day. So
they found a way. Yeah, freaking Georgia couldn't slay the giant there.
They couldn't get it done.
Couldn't get it done, and they looked like early on. I mean, they went down the field their first drive, scored a touchdown. I was like, okay, Georgia's, they're the better team.
They came out hot. They came out really hot. Yeah. I remember seeing that, and thinking Georgia's gonna do their thing, and then Alabama came out, kept their cool, no mistakes, and won the game, So
exactly. So you're leaning Alabama is what you're saying? You think Alabama wins and moves on to the national championship?
I'm gonna say Alabama. There. Yeah, I think they win. And like you said, I think it's going to be like, I would say like 27-21 Alabama or 27-17 or 21-17. One of those deals. I don't think it's going to be a blowout game. I just don't see that happening. But I mean, who knows, right?
Right. Yeah, I'm with you there. I would, if I had to pick a score, I'd probably go about like 21-17, maybe 24-21 or something like that. Lower scoring game, but I think Bama ends up winning. And I think maybe Bama kind of controls the game most of the game, and Michigan keeps it close, but never is really in threat to win the game for the most part.
Yeah.
Moving over to the Sugar Bowl, so we got Texas, number 3 seed, and then Washington, a number 2 seed. And Texas is actually the favorite in this game at 4.5 points. How are you kind of seeing this game play out? I think this is the little bit more intriguing game. I've been back and forth, but how do you see it so far?
Yeah. So how I see it is I think we have two really good offenses going to go up against each other. So it's going to be hopefully a fireworks show. I think both defenses have done really well too this year. I think this game is going to come down to which quarterback makes a mistake and like turnovers. That's what it's going to come down to. But I do think Penix, I think he's going to get it done. I think after watching how Washington played Oregon, because you and I going into that game, I thought Oregon was going to win. Oregon was playing some really good football, and Washington killed it. They did awesome, and not just crediting Texas, but I think Washington's just a better team. I think that their Pac-12 championship was a harder game, harder opponent than Texas played Oklahoma State, right? And so ultimately, you have two really good offenses, and I think pretty sound defenses. It's going to come down to turnovers, but I think Washington's going to edge Texas in this one.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Yeah, I think it's going to come down to which defense plays better, maybe which defense turns over the other team a little bit more. But, I mean, Washington, like you said, we watched that Pac-12 championship game against Oregon, and they were coming in, and everybody was picking Oregon. Like, everybody was okay, all over Oregon. But, I mean, Penix with those receivers, they're hard to stop.
They're very good.
Yeah, they're very good, and he throws. He's a really accurate passer. He gets the ball out to them quick. So Texas, their defense, both defenses are good. They're not great. Like I would say the better defenses are Michigan and Alabama versus Texas and Washington. But same with, I feel like Washington, I think the Pac-12 was much better than the Big 12 this year.
I agree.
And not just being a homer, being in the
I would
Pac-12
even
area.
say the Pac-12 was the best conference in college football this year.
That's what I thought too.
That's a bold claim too, most of the time, right? Because people will say SEC all day, but I really think that the Pac-12 this year, like you had Washington, you had Oregon, Utah, USC was good, even though like they stumbled. You had Oregon State, you had Washington State. Like it was a good Arizona.
Yeah. Arizona came out of nowhere. Yeah.
And you had Colorado kind of scraping the bottom.
They were good story in the beginning, right? They were coming, right?
But like that hype, I just felt like the Pac-12 in general was a really good conference this year, and it's a shame because it's the last time, right? I think we saw some good potential, but it is what it is. But yeah, I thought the Pac-12 was good this year, and I think it's, like you said, stronger than the Big 12. So.
Yeah, and I think that plays into Washington's favor because if you look at Texas's schedule, I mean, obviously they won Alabama in like the second week of the season. They ended up losing, I think, like 3 weeks later to Oklahoma. But what other games were they like, okay, this is a tough opponent, Kansas State, Kansas. So, and then you play Oklahoma State, which is you're a much better team than Oklahoma State. I'm pretty sure Washington would have done the same thing to Oklahoma State if they played. So, and then Washington beat Oregon twice, and a lot of people thought Oregon was one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the country for most of the year. So, I think that really kind of helps. They're a little bit more battle tested on the Washington side, and I just trust Penix more than Ewers when it comes down to the quarterbacks. And so, I think Penix will have a better game. I think maybe Washington can force a little bit of a couple turnovers on Ewers, and I think that's maybe the difference is it's going to come down to who plays a little bit better defense because unlike the other game where I think it's going to be in the 20s, I think this game will probably be in the 30s. Maybe one team's in the 40s, agree. Other teams in the 30s. Yeah, it'll be a higher scoring game. And go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I think it'll be a high scoring game. I think that, like you said, I think those turnovers are going to be huge because if I remember correctly, Texas turned it over to Oklahoma State like after like one of their first drives, and it was just kind of, I don't know. That's what I think, at least. I think turnovers are going to be so huge in this game.
Yeah. I mean, just going back to like the toughest game outside of Bama for Texas was the Oklahoma game, and like you said, they turned over the ball a couple of times early on in the game, and they were kind of playing catch up the whole time on Oklahoma. And I think Washington's a much better team than Oklahoma is, so. Obviously, big difference. That was in October, and now we're sitting here in December. So teams have changed. Texas has gotten better. They have some studs on defense. I mean, that Devondre Sweat kid, the defensive lineman, he's a stud. They have some good players, and they'll run the ball well. But I feel like this Washington team all year has been told that, okay, well, you're good. You guys are going to score points, but you're not good enough. And then they beat Oregon once, and then they beat Oregon again. I think they're just going to be, and they're going to hear it all. I mean, I've already heard it on TV a little bit. Most people are taking Texas. They're like, oh, Washington's a good team, but I like Texas in this game. So I think that kind of fuels their fire a little bit. And I know that Texas has a lot of 5-star talent and things like that, but I think when it comes to these kind of games, Washington may not have the recruiting rankings that Texas has, but you could throw that crap out when you get into these games.
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
That's old. That's past. And I honestly think Washington's the better overall team. Their defenses are pretty even. Maybe defensive line's a little bit better on Texas, but I think the secondary is actually better on Washington. Receivers and quarterback, I think, is a mismatch. Even though Ewers, I think, is a good quarterback, Penix, I think, is just on another level when it comes to that. And I thought he had a chance to win the Heisman, but I agree with him giving it to Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels had the best season. What was were you more Jaden Daniels than Penix as well?
Yeah, in a sense. I think I was kind of split because I was like, I see the stats, but I also see the Penix side where he had a killer season against like tough opponents, and I think that can play into the Heisman. At the end of the day, I don't really pay too much attention to the Heisman. I feel like it's kind of getting watered down with the transfer portal stuff, right?
It really is.
Yeah, like you have somebody who's
the last
been
two
at a school.
Heismans were transfers.
Yeah. So, and I'm all for like the transfer portal, right? I believe in giving people opportunities. It's when it becomes your third, and even like your second time, it's like, okay, this is kind of crazy and ridiculous. Like, why can't you stay somewhere? But it's above my pay grade to understand, I guess, all of that. But yeah, it just doesn't feel like it used to. Like when like Reggie Bush won it, when like Baker Mayfield won it, even though he was a transfer, right? And like Tim Tebow, I think, is another good one, where it was like with Tebow, he's like a picture perfect Heisman, right? So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting award now.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I mean, there was 4 finalists there. You had Daniels, Penix, Nix, and Marvin Harrison Jr. And Daniels, Penix, and Nix are all transfers. And it's like they're all in their second year, like all LSU, Oregon, Washington. All that. They're all in their second year there, but it's like, I remember Bo Nix playing at Auburn. I remember, Jaden Daniels at Arizona State. So, it just doesn't give you that same feel. Yeah, when Tebow won it, Tebow was Florida Gator.
He was a Gator. Like, through and through, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And other years, I mean, even RG3, he was still Baylor. Other players like that, they went through, and it feels weird, and you feel like you don't get like connection to these players. I mean, shit, if you look at the transfer portal now, there's like 2,000 players in there or something like that.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother topic.
It's a whole nother topic. I mean, USC had a 5-star quarterback come in last year, and he's in the transfer portal this year because he didn't start, and he may not start next year. It's like, okay, would you rather compete, develop, or are you just going to go find another school?
Well, I don't know
if
you're
not guaranteed to go start at that next school.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't know if you saw Oklahoma's quarterback's going to Oregon. And then that kid from UCLA is going to Oregon too, and he was like a 5-star coming.
Oregon too.
Yeah, so you have 2 guys. It's like that go to the same school, right? So I mean, competition's great, but whoever doesn't get the starting job, do you think they're going to transfer? Because they're transferring for spring, but you can transfer before the season starts, if I'm correct.
Before the season, so you can transfer after the spring game and everything. So whoever doesn't win there, does the 5-star, the UCLA kid more? Does he stay around, or I don't know? But and then Gabriel, this is his 3rd team, so it's like
it's wild.
If you're halfway through the season, most people are going to be like, oh shit, that's right, he's not in Oklahoma anymore, he's at Oregon. You got to get used to him there. And it's like, and then like you said with the Heisman, it's like all these players, it's like you heard of them coming out of high school, they committed to this university, and now they're at this university. And it's like, it's hard to keep up with. I think it definitely has watered down that award. And unfortunately, like just like the NFL with like the NFL MVP, the Heisman's basically become a quarterback award. It just goes to the best quarterback who has the best season, which I don't really care for, because like that kind of takes away from guys like Reggie Bush or guys like a Derrick Henry and things like that.
Or Devontae Smith, right?
It's like these guys had great years, and it's like these guys have to have like unbelievable years, like historic years to even have a chance now. And it's because it's just like, okay, well, what quarterback's on the best team that had the best, stats?
Yeah.
He's
No,
probably
I
gonna be
agree.
awarded. Yeah.
Yeah, with the Heisman though, I didn't even watch it, so it's
I picked up
kind
on
of
some
saw
of
the
it.
news.
Yeah. Yeah, I picked up on some of it. I watched it last year because Caleb Williams was up for it and won it. But this year I picked up on a little bit, but it was just like, it's not the like prestigious award that I mean, I always grew up thinking that was like the best award you could win.
Yeah, that was the big
That
deal.
was like the coolest award. Yeah. And now it's just like, oh, yeah. Oh, hey, Jane Daniels won the Heisman. Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he's sitting out of his bowl game, of course. So yeah, it's like, and then
Yeah,
that's a whole nother conversation too.
Yeah,
it's like all these guys. Yeah.
And again, it's like with the sitting at the bowl game, I totally get the side though where it's like you have to do what you have to do to stay healthy to get that NFL money because that's generational wealth, right? So I don't know. I think, yeah, it's just an interesting topic. I think like transfer portal, like sitting out of games and stuff. Like what's going to be interesting is I was listening to another podcast and they were talking about this, where when we have this 12-team playoff, are we going to see players sitting out of playoff games? Right? And like,
not, 'cause
imagine
it's
that.
like, yeah. I can't imagine because it's like I never thought someone would sit out the Rose Bowl and like Orange Bowls and Fiesta Bowls,
Crazy.
even though they're not playoff. But it's like those are like growing up, those were the
Huge.
best games.
Yeah.
Those were huge, and now people sat out that. And I would say I can't imagine someone sitting out a playoff game, even if they're like the 12 seed or the 11 seed, and the chances of them getting all the way to the end are probably not great. But it's like shit. I mean, it may happen if you're guaranteed, top 5 pick. I think it would be. I wouldn't do it, and I would hate to see a player do it because, especially when you have, even if you're the 12th seed and you maybe have the worst odds to win the championship, you still have odds to win a championship. I mean, I've seen NFL teams go from a wild card team and win a Super Bowl. So it's like it can happen.
Yeah, and remember when Colt McCoy got hurt against Bama and went out, and then,
Yep.
I mean, he played in the NFL, but it wasn't like what we thought, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I get both sides where it's like you don't want to risk that, but it's also just like shit. It's like you're in college still. You've busted your ass for 2-3 years in college with the same guys. Do you want to just be like, hey, I'm out because I'm going to get this big old payday? Or, I get like sitting out. Yeah, if you're in like the, like the Holiday Bowl. Once USC's season went down the drain, I knew Caleb Williams was going to be playing in the bowl game. He's not going to play in the Holiday Bowl next week because, it's not. But it's like, did you really sit out like the 12-5 matchup in the first round of the playoffs? It's like, damn. But you're probably right. That probably will happen. There probably will be a player that'll do that. It may not be a quarterback, or it may be like, okay, it's like, the defensive end. He's the top defensive end rated in the NFL, and he'll sit out because it's like, oh, well, I don't make that big of an impact. It's like, well, you kind of do, but he'll just sit out anyway. Yeah. So it'll probably happen. It'll be interesting. I'm excited for the 12-team playoff. I feel we'll get less conversations that we've had with Florida State. I mean, you'll still get the 13th ranked team be like, oh, we should have got in it, but it's like, all right, well, you probably have 2 or 3 losses. Like, you could have won it. Like, you don't have that big of an issue. You didn't go undefeated and win your conference, so it's not that big of a conversation.
It'll be good for that sake, but, at least we're moving away from the 14-team playoff, and it'll be fun. It'll be interesting to see what teams get in and how it all shakes out, but...
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it'll be and then with the whole like different conferences now, like I said, we could get into this. This could go on for a while, talking about all the issues with college football, which is tough because it's like obviously we both love the sport, and it's tough to kind of watch it transition into this and know exactly where it's going. But just to kind of get back to the Texas-Washington game, so you're leaning more towards Washington as well?
Yeah, so I'm leaning more towards Washington, and I think they win by 3 scores.
I think they do too. I think, like I said with Texas, I just don't know. It was Texas and Michigan, the conferences they played in, I felt were not nearly as good as Bama and Washington's conferences. And I just don't know how good they are. Yes, they both have really good players. I mean, when you get to the playoff, everybody's going to have really good players at this point. But I just think Washington and Bama have played tougher teams, have been in these moments a little bit more. And I like Washington. Maybe not by 2 scores. I think probably by 10. I would probably go like maybe 40-30, 42-31, something like that, somewhere for the score. But I kind of thought we were both leaning the same way, but I wasn't sure. So it looks like we both have a Washington-Bama championship. Obviously, that may not happen. Our picks aren't set in stone, and it's not like it's guaranteed, whatever we say. But if that were to be the case, Washington-Bama, how do you see that, or what do you where do
Yeah,
you lean there?
I'm glad you asked because I've been telling people a lot about this. So in this game, do you remember when Bama played Clemson when they had Deshaun Watson?
Yeah.
That's the vibe I get with that matchup. I
You know what? I've
and
never. Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say I just look back at teams that Alabama have played in the national championship, and that one sticks out to me, right? Because it was like Clemson comes in and they win, and it
Right.
was
Right.
monumental. It was a huge deal. And I feel like Washington kind of has that similar vibe, Like here you have this powerhouse SEC team. Here you have a team that's kind of up on the rise. They had a great year, awesome quarterback, good team around him. And yeah, I think in that game, Washington gets it done. I think that they get it done the same way that Clemson got it done against Alabama that one year, or they get it done how Clemson did against Alabama that one year where they blew them out. I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember that
When they
one.
had Trevor Lawrence the next time
Yeah.
around.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that this Washington's built like that. And I think Washington plays into that Bama weakness in the sense of the teams that beat Bama get up on them
Yeah.
because they're up on them to the point where Alabama can't be conservative and just bleed the clock and make you basically suffocate you the whole game. So they get up on them quick, make Alabama fight to stay in it, and then if you can keep scoring, like you have to run away from them type of deal. You have to get that score out of reach, or like I said, you have to possess the ball last and score on the last drive, right?
Yep. No, I agree. That's that point. I didn't even think about that. Like the whole like comparison with like Deshaun Watson and even maybe Trevor Lawrence to a lesser extent there with with those Clemson teams. Because yeah, going into both those games, it was like okay, well, Clemson's got this good young quarterback. Can they really challenge Alabama? And most people were just, and I remember I thought this too. It's like, no, Bama will probably just kind of just overpower them and just kind of flex their muscles and do their thing there. But no, I'm with you there as well on the Washington side. I think what people don't realize is both games that Washington played against Oregon, they got up on them early. So they took the lead, they came out firing, and they were ready to go. And I think that's what they're going to do against Texas, and I think that's what they'll do against Bama. Is they're going to be ready to go. The moment's not too big for them. I know Washington hasn't been in this moment in a long time, and not like Bama, but these are different kids, different coaches, different team. So I agree with you there. I think Washington gets up on them early, kind of imposes their will a little bit with their pass game, and like you said, I think this Washington team just seems to be a team that's kind of just on. It's their time, a little bit of team of destiny.
I agree.
They've had some close games throughout the season. I think they had a stretch where they won like 4 games in a row, and it was all by like 10 points or less. So they just find ways to win the game. And I think it's the quarterback mismatch. I like Milroe a lot, but I think Penix is just that much better.
Yeah.
And I think Bama will score on Washington, but I think Washington can score back. So I think that's the difference there. And I mean, Washington has 3 wide receivers that are probably going to be playing in the NFL, which is like, I mean, how many teams can say that? And then you have a quarterback that's probably going to be playing in the NFL too with Penix. So yeah, I think that's a good point there with the whole comparison to the Clemson team there, because Penix, I don't know if he's as good of an athlete as Deshaun Watson was or is, but still very accurate quarterback, a quarterback that you could say, I mean, he's probably a lot better than who's the best quarterback that Alabama faces here, probably Carson Beck for Georgia.
Yeah.
I would say Penix is a lot better than him. And then
Did Alabama? They play in Jaden Daniels, right? Did they play it? Yeah.
They play. But I think he got hurt in that game. I think they.
I don't quite remember.
Yeah. I want to say that was a higher scoring game. They won like 42 to 28 or something like that. But I want to say Daniels got hurt like midway through the game and wasn't there for the whole game. I think they still win that game, but LSU's defense was almost as bad as USC's defense. So
Yeah,
they were able to just kind of just score.
Wasn't the
and do
LSU
whatever
of
they
old?
wanted. No,
Yeah.
it wasn't Honey Badger on the other side there. You know? Yeah.
And I think another thing with Washington is for that game, they both win. They're in the championship. I think they're gonna hear, can Washington's defense hold up? And I think that lights a fire under them, and they come out and play their asses off, kind of like Clemson's defense did that one year, right? Yeah. And they came out and played extremely well. So I think that's a huge factor. Is that defense is going to come in and they're going to play as hard as they can, right? And like you said, they've won how many super close games? Like they've been there. They've played these good teams. It might not have been Alabama every week, but like we talked about earlier on the show, we both think that the Pac-12 is the best conference right now, and like this year, right? So,
Yeah.
I think Washington gets it done. I really do, and if I don't get it, that's not right. Then I guess I'll eat my words for speaking it out, right?
Right. Hey, I mean, yeah, we're not going to be the only ones wrong if we're wrong, but that's funny. I wasn't sure if we had the same semifinal picks and the same finals picks, but yeah, we have the same picks across the board. Yeah, no, I wasn't sure we were going to agree this much, but it's good to see that. And yeah, like we said, I mean, we have no clue exactly if this is going to be the matchup. We just this is the way we feel. We watch a lot of games. We've watched both these teams play a lot, so this is kind of the way we feel. But I'm excited to watch it. I think both semifinal games have a chance to be really good games. These are really good matchups, I think. And then whoever ends up in the championship, I mean, shit, if it's Texas, Michigan, I think that could be a good game too. I don't see it going that way, of course, but yeah, I think that could be a good game either way. But I'm just excited that we have this playoff. There's no clear favorite. There's no team that you can be like, okay, who's going to beat them? No one can beat them. So it's pretty even field. I would say if I was, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it'll be interesting. Sorry, I was just thinking. It'll be interesting, like, say Texas wins, right? And they play Alabama, and you get kind of that rematch. Right. So that would be fun, too, right?
Get the rematch.
And it would also be kind of
that'd be fun.
Cool if Harbaugh got in there and won as well. So I think all these teams are unique in their own way. I would have loved to seen Florida State in there just because, but here we are. But yeah, it'll be fun. Like you said, these are all based on just watching a lot of football my whole life and like what I've seen in the past, right? With these types of playoffs. So
right, exactly, yeah. So, well, thank you for hopping on today, Mason.
Yeah, dude.
Can't wait for these games. They'll both be played on January 1st, both New Year's Day. I love that it's back to New Year's Day. We've had like games on the 30th, games on the 31st.
Finally.
College football, national championship Rose Bowls are meant to be on New Year's Day. I love the NFL, but play the NFL on Saturday if the New Year's Day falls on a Sunday. But thank you for joining, Mason. Any last words or any last thoughts that you have?
Yeah, I think that's it. I do want to say this. I wish Washington was in the Rose Bowl. I like seeing a Pac-12 team in the Rose Bowl over like a Big Ten. So that would have been cool.
I wanted so bad. Yeah. I wanted so bad for it to be, and hey, maybe we get a championship of this, but for it to be Washington, Michigan in the Rose Bowl, just you get that last Big Ten Pac-12 matchup after when the Pac-12 is going away. But maybe we get that in the championship, but it won't. I don't know. I think championship played in like Dallas this year or something. I don't remember exactly where.
I'm not even sure. It's like what's the date on that? Like the 9th or something. So
the 9th, and that's another thing. College football play the championship game on a Saturday. Why are we playing it on a Monday night?
Yeah, it's.
What do we do?
I've never liked that, but whatever.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, it's like play all year on Saturdays, and now we're playing on a Monday night. So okay, we'll play the championship game, the biggest game of the year, on a Monday night. You know, everybody's got to work that day, so everybody's getting home late. Yeah, it's like play it on a damn Saturday, so everybody can sit and watch. Play it, and you can play it in prime time. Play it at 6 o'clock or whatever.
You know, they're so worried about ratings.
Thank you for hopping on, Mason.
I was gonna say they're so worried about ratings, but then that's like the dumbest. They drop that ball every time. You know, it's crazy
every time. Yeah, and it's like, you put it on a Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening. Your ratings, even just the days, it's gonna be
or a Sunday.
Better. I mean, you're gonna get your ratings regardless. Or a Sunday, you throw it on a Sunday. I know they don't want to compete against the NFL, but like this is the championship game. Like people can get away from the NFL for a little bit and watch the championship game. But either way, thank you for hopping on today, Mason.
Yeah, dude, of course. Thanks for having me.
Looking forward to those games. And like I said before, this is Sports Talk on a Budget. If you do prefer the audio version, you can find this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, or please go watch the show, like and subscribe on the YouTube channel under Sports Talk on a Budget. Thanks again, Mason, for hopping on, and everybody have a good day and a good weekend and a happy holidays.